streets in urban neighborhoods are being transformed around the country, and Evansville is really at the leading edge of that with what you are considering. So I want to talk a little bit about one element of complete streets, and that's this idea of protected bike lanes. And from this slide, you can see just exactly what I've just stated here, that there is a whole group of folks that are interested in bicycling but don't bicycle because they don't feel safe on the streets. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. So there's been a great deal of research across the country about the different types of bicyclists. And all of you know these types of bicyclists. But this kind of codifies it a little bit. So when we think about bicyclists, there's really 4 types. There's the strong and fearless. Those are the bicyclists that they'll bike anywhere on any street with traffic. They really don't care. They feel safe, and they're fearless about it. That really represents a very small percentage of bicyclists around the country. And in this particular study, this was done in Portland, Oregon, which, if any of you are familiar with Portland, Portland is kind of the bicycling mecca in the United States. In Portland, Oregon, only 6% of the bicyclists fall into that strong and fearless category. And that's pretty consistent around the country. The next group we call the enthused and confident. So these are the folks that, they're not quite strong and fearless, but they feel good about riding in traffic. They represent about 9% of bicyclists. The next group is what we call the interested but concerned. This is the group that I was talking about, and this represents the overwhelming majority of cyclists. This is 60% roughly around the country. So there are a lot of bicyclists that are out there that really don't feel safe about bicycling on streets, and this is the group that we're trying to reach. And by the way, this is not any particular age group or any particular demographic. This is just the type of bicyclist, how they feel about safety in bicycling. And then the last group is what we call no way, no how. They're either physically unable to bike, or they're not interested, they don't feel safe at all, and they're not going to get on a bicycle. And that's, again, a fairly large percentage, about 25%. So in this particular study, one of the questions that was asked was, if or when you ride a bike, are you concerned about being hit by a motor vehicle? So when you ask those groups of bicyclists and you look at each one of those, what you find is in the interested and concerned group, again, that big group of bicyclists that we want to get out and using our streets, over 84% of them are concerned about their safety. Obviously, the vast majority of them. And then when you begin to break it down a little bit further and you ask them about their comfort level on a conventional bike lane, again, that sort of striped bike lane that we talked about on the street, versus their comfort level with a separated or a protected bike lane, what you find is that a physically separated bike lane is disproportionately attractive to people who are concerned about their safety. So again, when you look at that 60%, whoops, I think I hit the wrong button, Jeff. There we go. When you look at that 60% of people, over 81% of them would feel safe riding in a protected bike lane. Even those folks that say no way, no how, if you give them a protected bike lane, more than half of them agree that, well, I think I could actually go out and try that. So the point is, there is a great deal of demand for safe bicycling facilities. And if it's almost the story of if you build it, they will come. And this has been proven over and over again in cities around the country. A couple of quick examples. in Washington, D.C., there was a protected bike lane installed on Pennsylvania Avenue. If you haven't been to D.C. in a few years, you probably haven't seen that. I think it was installed about 2 years ago. They saw a 200% increase in bicycling on Pennsylvania Avenue once they installed that. So that's a pretty big jump. Even in Chicago, one of the streets that was studied there, they saw a 55%, so half again as many folks riding bikes once a protected bike lane was installed. So here in our own state, we have the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. And our firm was the lead design firm on that project, and it took 6-7 years to build. But now we have 8 miles of protected bike lane running throughout the city of Indianapolis. And what we've discovered is that we now have a bicycling culture in Indianapolis where previously one did not exist. And the types of bicyclists that are out there are those 60%, those interested but concerned folks. Here you see an example of a protected cycle track or a protected bike lane. This is a mom and her son on their way to school. They actually go to the same school as our kids, so I know this family well. You see a lot more women out bicycling. This is not something that you would see if they didn't feel safe on the streets of Indianapolis. This is a very common scene. And then you see people basically riding around on their lunch hour or riding back and forth from work to a meeting or to the grocery store. So that it's really changed the culture of how we move around the city of Indianapolis. And we think that's what could happen here in Evansville. So it's not just about getting more people out on the bike. So what does that really mean? What happens when you do that? The real value of that is what it means to stimulating the local economy and the local businesses. And again, just a few quick statistics here. In New York City, they put in a protected bike lane on 9th Street, or 9th Avenue. The businesses along that corridor saw almost a 50% increase in annual business